Good morning and welcome to Spirit Matters, your daily Bhakti Center podcast, where we talk about spiritual subject matters and bringing them into our daily lived lives and approaching them in a practical way where we can actually start to understand some of this very high philosophy in beautiful, simple ways. I am here with my co-host Achyuta Gopi. Our tri-host Dayal Garanga is MIA.
He's like Narada Muni almost.
Yeah.
Oh.
So we're gonna find out where he is after this. We have our live studio audience: Lileshwari, Martha, Anna, Irenka, Dana, Kimberly, Lane, and I think Rini is just signing in. And yes, thank you all for being here. It's Monday. It's a new week. New topics, new things. Just before we were chatting about this very interesting topic about not bringing our. Well, I'll let you say it, Achyuta, because you said it so nicely, and then we'll go off from that. But how are you first?
Yes, that's what I wanted to get into. I was like, how are we? I'm good. I'm really good. I took a walk outside yesterday, which I really underestimated how peoply it was going to be outside yesterday. I definitely underestimated how peoply, so much peoply. It was
That's why I go out. I always go for walks like earlier because if you go out, I don't know what time you went out.
well, see, I thought I would like stagger it. So I went to this vegan place at like maybe 3:30,
Mm.
but it was right in Chelsea, so it wasn't staggered as much as I thought it was gonna be staggered. It was not staggered. But it was like a really cool, also very weird social experiment for me to like walk through the city. I had like a really old school like Indra Kirtan playing in my AirPods. And I was just kind of like walking around. And at some point, I was like, this is the weirdest juxtaposition I've ever done in my life. I have this like old school tape that's like muffled and all that, but it's one of my favorites. And it's like playing in my ears. And I'm like standing in Washington Square Park, just people watching, just kind of looking around. It's like this mass of people everywhere. And nobody's wearing any clothes really. And then there's this kirtan going on in my AirPods. I was like, this is so weird. But it's also very New York. So
Yeah, because yesterday was like the Pride March in New York
yeah.
City. So
I
I was
thought I had staggered it, but I hadn't staggered it.
no, I was about to say Chelsea at 3:30
I
p.m. on
hadn't,
the
I
day
hadn't
of the
staggered
Pride March.
I
Not
hadn't. Every other parade in New York is kind of over early. Like that like they'll start it and then it's even like Thanksgiving Day parade, all of them, they're kind of over early.
not Pride. No, that goes on and on.
It, how are you?
I'm doing good. All of my plans got canceled this weekend, and I was kind of happy about it. I was supposed to spend time with family, and then I was supposed to go to Pride, and then all of that got canceled, and I didn't want to go Pride March, and I was kind of just like at home
It's
having
way
fun
too early out
by
there.
myself. Like I was just like la di da, like trying to install things that didn't go really well. People were really amused by my like people were coming up to me like this is, you're funny. I was like, I'm not trying to be funny. This is just how I am. Like your sister was like, your stories are my new favorite channel. I'm just like, I'm glad that I can do this service of amusing you. Because like I tried my best to be a handy person and a tools person, but it just did not happen. I like dropped my tools out the window. I was just like, well, and that was that. I was like, and that was that. But I had a great weekend. I was just like really enjoying my own company and yeah, just like fixing up my little apartment and trying to stay cool and going out for walks earlier in the day to not be around too many people and reading a lot. So yeah, I'm great. I'm great.
Did you okay. What's our air conditioning status?
The air the air conditioning status is that the super is coming at 10 to help me take out the window guards. I think them. And then I will install it myself.
Whilst the super is there, maybe you can be like, hey, also, you want to help me install this AC?
Yeah, because that might be another journey that I'm not sure. I thought I could do it, but we'll see. Because I bought specifically an air conditioner that's supposed to be an easy installation process.
Like,
Well,
you're supposed to just be able to close the window and let it.
yeah.
All
But
right, I'm gonna send thoughts and prayers.
it's really interesting because I was really feeling like I don't know. It's like because right before this, you were talking about not bringing every material issue that comes up into our spiritual life or and trying to have some compartmentalization.
Yes, spiritual compartmentalization.
Yeah, maybe you can speak more a little bit about that because I think that's what I was feeling this weekend, but I want to make sure that that's what I was feeling.
I also kind of felt like I needed to spiritually compartmentalize, and just have some different boxes for different things, and so not everything bleeds together all the same. Um, and yes, there are always going to be big issues. Sometimes, for my own health, spiritually, mentally, physically, emotionally, I have to choose the priorities of those issues, which doesn't make me a bad person, doesn't make anybody a bad person. It just makes you intelligent, self aware. And I think that this is something that we have to be, something that is self aware. Because every day is going to bring a new issue, every single day. That is the way of this material world. Every single day is going to is going to bring another issue. And if we put every issue as the top one priority issue, we are going to get burnt out real quick, real fast, and not be of any help to anyone, especially ourselves. So I think it's really important for us to be self aware and do at least a little bit of compartmentalizing in the area where we look at, okay, what are my priorities? Otherwise, we're like running off and solving and fixing the world, but it's like, but your house is in disarray. Like, don't you think you've got to take care of your house? And I'm like, yeah, but there's an issue down the block where there's a fire that needs solving. It's like, but your house is falling down. It's like charity starts at home, but so does the help. So sometimes we really got to check in with ourselves and like really figure out, okay, can I even handle this right now?
Mm,
And then if I know I'm in a space where I'm already sensitive and feeling a little bit raw spiritually, emotionally, I've got to be careful. It's like if you had a burn on your skin, you'd keep it covered up. You'd be really careful. You wouldn't expose it because anything that touched it would then just make it that much worse.
mm,
So sometimes we have to look at ourselves and find out, okay, am I already raw? Am I already dealing with a lot? Then let me take a second. Let me figure out how to actively put some protective layering on myself.
mm,
Otherwise, I will be of no use to anyone, especially me. And then, we're always looking at the world in terms of our own wounds. So we're seeing the wounds and we're seeing the things, and then we're looking at everybody else like, well, how come this doesn't matter to you? Like, I can't believe this doesn't matter to you. You must be a lowly attuned person. Like, you are not highly elevated or activated at all if this does not matter to you. Sometimes people just don't have the capacity,
mm,
and we have to be able to separate that from their spiritual progress, from the spiritual friends that we make. We have to look at the basis upon which we formed relationships, etc.
mm, 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 mm. Yes, this is all very important. And I like that you brought in this metaphor or this imagery rather of like a burn, and if you keep on poking or touching at it or leave it exposed, like it's just gonna get infected. It's gonna get sad. And so we do need to do this means of self-protection. And I don't know, this is just coming up for me. I follow this lady on Instagram. She's really good. She's really. I'm gonna send you one of her posts. I can't remember her full name. Her name is like Marina something.
Hmm.
Anyway, she's like a psychologist, and she does a lot of like therapy and work and like whatever. Her last name is like long, can't remember it. But anyway, she posted something really, really interesting yesterday that I really resonated with. And she said, I can't remember verbatim, but basically the concept was how to deal with trauma without talking about the specifics of it all the
Mm.
time. And she was saying how a lot of times talking about the specifics of or thinking about or reliving the memories of a traumatic experience in your life can actually like re-traumatize you. And so she was saying how we treat like because trauma lives in the body, and so like there'll be a lot of like psychosomatic like nerve things that happen as a result of it. So she was talking about how we want to treat those effects, and that actually will help alleviate the trauma. And that really, really, really resonated with me, because I'm just like, all this trauma, like in my personal life, all this trauma, like I don't want to think about that stuff, like I don't want to like go to bed at night like thinking and thinking and thinking about all this like awful crap all the time, sorry my language. And rather, like, what she was presenting was like, oh, this is nice, and I've heard it presented before in that way by different psychologists and whatever, but it was just kind of a nice reminder. And the reason that came up for me is because when it comes to spirituality, we're really talking about like higher realms and higher things and higher tastes and these beautiful pastimes of Krishna and his instructions and the gopis and the Gita and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And yeah, it's like how much of my material baggage, I guess, am I bringing to that? And should I bring, I don't think I'm supposed to. Like, actually, I'm supposed to figure out how to
Mm.
let go of that stuff or how to come to terms with that stuff before I can start to even come to that level of really having relationship, according to our philosophy, coming to that level of having like more of a pure relationship, And so it's like, I think this mood that sometimes people have of like, I have to have an opinion about everything, I have to be involved in everything materially that's going on in this world, it doesn't seem so helpful to me, at least to me. This is like my personal opinion. It doesn't seem so helpful in my spiritual life. I think that it's important to make those distinctions, because in material life, like I think that people will have their opinions and their causes and things that feel very important to them, and that's okay. I'm not saying that you shouldn't or you should or whatever. I think that it's like, that's your thing, or maybe it's our thing together, and
Mhm.
we're doing our material endeavors together to fix this problem in society, which is fine. But I think when it starts to become like, if you don't care about this, like you were saying, Achute, if you don't care about this, or if you don't have an opinion about this, that means that you're like some degraded, awful,
Yeah.
evil person. And it's like, no, maybe
Like,
I care about
yeah,
other things.
yeah.
And maybe like I'm also over here trying to practice, my spirituality, and I'm needing to spiritually compartmentalize a little bit, and also materially compartmentalize. And the last thing I'll say is, I think that because of social media and because of just the world that we live in, Doyle says this a lot. He's really good at putting this into words of just like, we were never meant to be this exposed to this many people and this many opinions and thoughts. Like the human mind was not meant to like do that. Like, we're not socialized in that way, and that's why it can feel exhausting to be in social media, where it's like, and the news can feel exhausting, where it's like, and this is happening, and this is happening, and the weather in Shanghai is this, and oh my god, and this is happening, and oh, the Bahamas, and there's a hurricane, and like, oh, it's like, we're not actually meant to function in that way. And so in many ways, the communal way of being has been dissolved, and now we're like in this hyper state of kind of having to be on and present and aware to every single thing that's going on in the world. It's like, ugh, that's too much.
Well, interestingly enough, like, and I brought up this counter viewpoint before that, well, Vedically, there's always been a lot going on. And Vedically, even if you look at the trajectory of Srimad Bhagavatam, we are given all of the information. We are given all of it. The problem comes in when we decide that the reaction is for us to control, fix,
Mm,
bend, mold, all of it. Right? The intelligence of Srimad Bhagavatam and the intelligence of all of these higher celestial beings in the universe was they understood what was within their capacity
mm,
and what was without their capacity, like outside of their capacity. So just having all that information rushing at you is one thing.
mm,
I think we actually are equipped. Our
mm,
problem comes when we don't take into account this is not within my capacity to fix. We need a higher power for this.
mm,
And that's what I appreciate about the devas. They'd look and say, yeah, I can't fix this.
mm,
This is above me. We need somebody else. And they'd go to Lord Brahma, and then Lord Brahma would go to somebody else. They would go to these higher realms of consciousness and people who had a bigger capacity to handle it because they could see I can't fix this. I can't control this. And it's a very honest view of our capabilities. We've lost that. So just having the information is one thing. I think our problem is we try to control and fix way too much beyond our limitations. And we are not honestly looking at those limitations at all.
mm,
Nor
mm,
are we looking at the limitations of somebody else. We are in a place where we expect quick responses, snap responses,
mm.
respond immediately. And a lot of times I tell people, I'm like, you don't want me to respond immediately. My first immediate response might not be what you like. Give me a second. You definitely want me to think about it. And
Mm.
so there are so many people I've gotten requests and people have said, oh, we want you to come for a kirtan. And I'm like, well, I need to think about it. And then people are like, well, how long? I need an answer right now. I'm like, cool. No, I'm not going. And then people look at me and they're like, what? Well, why would you do that? And I was like, I said, give me a minute. If you want an answer right now, I'm not going.
Yeah.
If you gave me a minute, maybe I'd be able to figure it out in my mind. But you don't want the initial gut. And so we've put this pressure on each other. Respond immediately. Have an immediate reaction. And a lot of times I don't actually want to hear people's first response. I want you to sit there and think about it.
Mm,
Put it in human terms.
mm,
Put it in heart deep terms.
mm,
And what you said about this psychologist, I think is really wonderful. Um, we've gotten to a place where we're like, what is fixing the symptoms going to do? We need to get to the root cause of the issue. Yes, but also sometimes in order to deal with that, we have to look at, okay, look, all that happened is heavy. How are you feeling?
mm,
How are you feeling? Maybe we can fix that.
mm,
And then get to the root cause of stopping that from happening again. But how are we feeling? And I feel like this comes up a lot in spiritual realms when we talk about spiritual controversy. There's big spiritual controversy about living entities falling or not falling away from a spiritual realm.
mhm,
And the controversy could go on for thousands of years. But honestly, how are we feeling?
mm,
Really, we're here. Bottom line is we are in this craptacular situation, right? Like, how are we feeling about it? Not great? Okay. So it doesn't matter whether we did or didn't or when whatever the case is, we find ourselves currently in this situation,
mm,
emotionally, spiritually, materially.
mm,
Now how do we feel? How do we begin to change those feelings in order to be able to rise up out of that situation?
mm, mm,
As long as we stay mired in that one point over there, we are not fixing this situation here. We're still not fixing our emotional responses. We're still not fixing our habits that are formed from those emotional responses. And so sometimes it can feel like just fixing the symptoms won't actually fix the cause, but we have to start somewhere. And I think starting with those symptoms, especially spiritually, we've got to look in and see, how do we fix that? And so while I saw a lot of people sharing a lot of incredible things over the past few days, really, I'm like, but you're feeling something.
Mm-hmm.
Positively, negatively, whatever it is, you're feeling something or not feeling something.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen a lot of people be really callous about things, and I'm like, whoa. But over and above all, whatever my thoughts are about whatever issue it is, I'm looking and saying people are being really vulnerable. And it does not help for me to meet that vulnerability with smacking them in the face with my logic and reason. I can offer prayer.
Mm-hmm.
I can hold you in my heart and understand that, okay, you've been through something traumatic. I can honor that vulnerability without it being a detriment to my spirituality.
Mm-hmm. And I think that, thank you for everything that you're saying. It rings so many bells in my mind. But one thing that just came to heart is that, yeah, this thing that you said way before about how if my house is on fire, I need to take care of my house first and not go out and try and fix all the problems. And so what I was really feeling is like, what spirituality is telling us, what bhakti is telling us is that, and even if we look at history, it's like I have personally, like me as a person, I have no idea what's going to happen. I have no idea if the, there's going to be insurrections or it's going to turn into the Handmaid's Tale, or if there's going to be a revolution, or if the people and the power of the people are going to win, or if the government is evil, or if like capital, like I have no idea. All I do know is that, and if you look back at history, there's been revolution and another government in place, and other countries are formed, and then this country is, and then this empire and colonial, blah, 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 blah. And at the end of the day, no matter what happens, I am still going to be me. Like at the end of the day, I'm still going to have my issues, my problems, my stuff in my heart. So no matter which way things go, like I'm still me, and I still have my relationship with my higher power, and I'm still figuring that out. And it's like time and time again, history has proven itself that like, yeah, we might be, going in a certain direction that some people think is right, but apparently the other people don't think is right. But at the end of the day, that anger, that wrath, that envy, that lust for material things, it's still in the heart.
Yeah.
It's still there. So it's like, okay, we figured, we thought we figured something out, but I guess not. And then it comes back to this point that we've been making, that Achyuta made so beautifully. It's like, well, how are you doing right now? Like, how is your heart doing right now? Like, what are you actually feeling? And that's such an important place to start with, I feel like, especially when it comes to spirituality, because I think a lot of the times people get lost in like, what's the word, like in causes, or
Yeah.
lost in like, and both material causes and spiritual causes, like it's for this, or this is how it's supposed to be, or like whatever. But it's like, okay, but how are you? Like, are you suffering? Okay, let's talk about suffering, let's talk about pain, let's talk about like what being a human in this material world means, let's talk about like all of this. And that's how you get into those deeper conversations. And after that, that's when you can start talking about like bhakti and philosophy and all this stuff.
Mhm.
Not at the beginning. You can't go in at the beginning and be like, you're not the body and blah, blah. We've talked about that before. But it's like when you approach someone, or you yourself are approaching this mood of like, approach yourself, I mean, in this mood of like, what am I feeling right now? Like, what's going on in my body right now? Is it a sense of a feeling of, what's this word I'm looking for, of not being able to control the situation or the outcome, of feeling uncontrolled, of feeling like I can't do anything or I don't matter? It's like, that's actually, and I think, and this is the last thing I'll say, I think that a lot of people don't want to feel that. Like
Yeah.
people don't want to feel that I can't control the situation, or people don't want to feel like, wow, this sense of hopelessness, or I can't, or I don't know what to do. And it's really interesting because like in bhakti, so much when you read, it's like that's that feeling is the starting place.
Yes.
And so it's like that feeling of like, I can't do this on my own, I feel so alone, like Arjuna, Bhagavad Gita, so many other places in Bhagavatam, that's the starting place. But it's so interesting because most people don't want to feel that, because it's scary, because, so many reasons.
Well, yeah, and the it's the starting place of all things, really,
Mm,
because it makes us feel powerless.
yes.
And that powerlessness reminds us that I'm not the controller. But the whole reason we're here is because we wanted to be controllers. And if we're not getting, from contemplating the objects of the senses, one develops attachment to them. We are attached to this feeling of being the controller,
Mhm,
of feeling powerful. And when that comes crumbling down and material nature says, Sorry to break it to you, but actually, there's already somebody in control here. It's never going to be you.
mhm,
And then when we are hit in the face with that truth, of course we don't like it. We've built our existence around it. And we feel like we need it in order to continue. And so then when we're looking at this and we're thinking, well, if I'm powerless, what does that make me?
mm,
I've got nothing then. I've got no race, no culture, no background, no what. I'm powerless.
mm,
All of my identities that I've built around this being able to control something, being able to have some power over some part of my life, I have no identity then.
mm,
So, what is my identity? Then we start asking those real questions. What is my identity?
mm,
Our identity is that I'm a soul
mhm,
built for more than just this revolving material world life. Actually, a soul fully and always surrendered, always under the control of but the most beautiful supreme person. And then we start thinking like, but I was made for more than this. Yeah, we were. We all are. Then like you said, then is actually where we can get into those
mm,
situations. We can actually start to seek out
mm,
philosophy. Yeah, that the reason Doyle and I started talking was I had made a post a long time ago, which was there's a time for philosophy and there's a time for love.
mm.
And I feel like that time for love usually comes first. And then the time for philosophy can ease in, like you said, afterward.
Mm. And I think love is such an interesting word and
Yeah,
feeling and
right?
exploration that I feel like that's a whole, maybe that's an interesting direction because I guess when you said that word, what came up for me was like, there's a lot of whatever's going on in the world right now in the United States, in the whole world, like it's very clear, if you really just feel for a moment that there's a lack of love in a lot of these situations. And I really am interested in the idea of love because it's like, well, will you love me if I have a different opinion than you? It's like, no. Okay, so then what's that? Like,
Yeah.
what does love actually look like? How do we actually practice it? And Bhakti has so many different answers to this, but a lot of this word love is thrown around a lot, and
Hmm.
this I'll end with this because we're closing in on time, but this month I've been actually very reflective on pride and all this stuff and whatever, and I've been a lot more reserved than I usually am. Usually I'm just like sharing and I'm like, yeah, pride, blah, blah, blah. And this month I've been like a lot more reserved and just like, what does it mean if I don't participate? Like, what does it mean if I don't love in the way that you all think that I'm supposed to be loving or like this, like, and I've been kind of like socially experimenting a little bit, and the results have been very interesting. I can share with you all more tomorrow. But yeah, this word is fascinating because if I approach someone with love, like actual care, um, but the minds not the mindset the platform is not
Hmm.
the platform of love, right?
Hmm.
Like I might be on the platform of love but they might not be, or vice versa. Then there can't actually be an exchange, and that's really fascinating because the exchange will be stopped in its tracks of, oh, but you don't think this thing that I think, so therefore,
Right.
or
And
something.
that's if we're looking at it in terms of a material love, which is all based on exchange and give and take. If we focus it on a spiritual love, then what happens is sometimes we get what happens with Radhanath Maharaj. That love elevates the other person.
Hmm.
It just elevates their thinking instead of dragging down the other loving component. And so, like you said, can I approach the person who does not agree with me with love? And I was thinking about that because I've seen so many polarizing and different views, and I was just thinking how to reconcile those two as a spiritually minded person. And for me, like I said, I had a conversation even with Keish. I was like, for me, it starts with having those conversations face to face. I
Mm-hmm.
don't want to do this thing where we type things out into the abyss of the internet anymore, and then you like, I released it. I said what I said, mic drop. I'm like, but to whom? Who did you just say that to? Do you even know who you're talking to? Have you looked at that person in the eyes and looked at maybe that their situation is different from yours, but it has been so traumatic and heartbreaking for them that that is why they resorted to whatever they resorted to? This is why they've gone through whatever they've gone through. This is what they've suffered at the hands of. And then you've mic dropped your moment. Is that a victory? Or are we sitting face to face and saying, okay, I hear your view. Now why is that your view? What are you
Mm-hmm.
feeling about your view?
Mm-hmm.
What does that view make you actually feel?
Mm-hmm.
If you disagree, what does it make you? Are you feeling anything, or are you just like, no, I disagree? And it's like, well, why? Because it's wrong. It's like, well, how's that making you feel?
Mm-hmm.
Conversely, you're like, well, I do agree with this. I'm like, how's that making you feel?
Mm-hmm.
Are we actually looking at each other? We just nobody has any faces anymore. It's all screens and all whatever. Like, I feel like that was the crux of my whole, like, I whenever social issues happen, it's like hell for me empathically.
Mm-hmm.
I am picking up on so much that there's like no way to even insulate myself, and I've tried different things, but it's always like a little version of hell for me because I wind up getting all this, like, there's knots in my stomach and all this stuff, and I'm not even, it's like I don't, it's not me. And so it's always a very interesting thing to tap into. Yeah, but how are you feeling?
Mm-hmm.
Because what's coming out of your mouth is only one iota.
Yeah.
I want to know what's happening behind that.
Yeah. Yeah. Beautiful. Thank you. I think we're running. We've run
Yeah,
out of time.
briefly.
But tomorrow we can continue this because it's a very interesting topic for sure. Martha was saying that she was very sad 2 days ago when something happened, and I responded in a very non-spiritual way. Sadness filled my heart when I realized how easily I could act in a way, forgetting everything I have learned. Thank you so much for sharing that so honestly, Martha, because it happens to all of us. It's not. It happens to all of us practicing on this spiritual path. Yeah, like those moments where it's like, oh, and then I respond in my you know, passionate, materialistic way. I was having a moment like that. I didn't respond to the person, but I told my friend Jaya, I was just like, I just need to vent right now, if that's okay. He's like, go for it. And I was like, I was just like venting about something. And then our other friend Janavi comes in, and I was like more calm, but she could see that I was like a little red, and I was like doing things with my hands. I speak with my hands a lot. She was like, what's going on? I was like, nothing. I just needed to get that like Latin passionate like stuff out. I was like, I'm okay now. So it happens to the best of us. But thank you all so much for listening and for being here. We are going to hand it over to Kimberly, who is our expert taker awayer.
Where?
Taker
Take it
awayer.
away.
Take it away. So today we're taking away to have different boxes and compartmentalize. It's important to understand our capacity because charity and help starts at home. And then we don't always have to make snap responses. There is a time for philosophy and a time for love. The first step we can take is checking in with each other's hearts and asking each other how we are genuinely feeling.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Kimberly. That's like perfectly put. Thank you all so much for tuning in and for being here. We'll be here tomorrow morning. Thank you, Achuta. Thank you to our live studio audience from all over the world. And we will see you tomorrow at 9 a.m. Eastern Time. Bye, everyone.